Another day, another article for Science English. Hello and welcome to our channel, English Listening Practice with Hot Science News. This channel will be helpful in improving English listening skill for students and scientists who are not English native speakers. You will listen this science article in male voice today. At the end of the original article, the summary for laymen is following. Today's original article is prepared by Pinto Rodriguez and published in Science News on March 24, 2023. Title: Microplastics are in our bodies. Tiny particles of plastic have been found everywhere, from the deepest place on the planet, the Mariana Trench, to the top of Mount Everest. And now more and more studies are finding that microplastics, defined as plastic pieces less than 5 millimeters across, are also in our bodies. What we are looking at is the biggest oil spill ever, says Maria Westerbos, founder of the Plastic Soup Foundation, an Amsterdam-based non-profit advocacy organization that works to reduce plastic pollution around the world. Nearly all plastics are made from fossil fuel sources. And microplastics are everywhere, she adds, even in our bodies. In recent years, microplastics have been documented in all parts of the human lung, in maternal and fetal placental tissues, in human breast milk and in human blood. Microplastics scientist Heather Leslie, formerly of Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam, and colleagues found microplastics in blood samples from 17 of 22 healthy adult volunteers in the Netherlands. The finding, published last year in Environment International, confirms what many scientists have long suspected: these tiny bits can get absorbed into the human bloodstream. We went from expecting plastic particles to be absorbable and present in the human bloodstream to knowing that they are, Leslie says. Microplastics in the blood. Microplastic particles were detected in blood samples from 17 of 22 healthy adult volunteers in the Netherlands. The types of polymer present varied across the group, as did the concentrations. Donors 11, 12 and 13 contributed 2 samples, both with microplastics. For many others, one sample had microplastics and a second did not. The findings aren't entirely surprising. Plastics are all around us. Durable, versatile and cheap to manufacture, they are in our clothes, cosmetics, electronics, tires, packaging and so many more items of daily use. And the types of plastic materials on the market continues to increase. There were around 3,000 plastic materials when I started researching microplastics over a decade ago, Leslie says. Now there are over 9,600. That's a huge number, each with its own chemical makeup and potential toxicity. Though durable, plastics do degrade, by weathering from water, wind, sunlight or heat, as in ocean environments or in landfills, or by friction, in the case of car tires, which releases plastic particles along roadways during motion and braking. In addition to studying microplastic particles, researchers are also trying to get a handle on nanoplastics, particles which are less than 1 micrometer in length. The large plastic objects in the environment will break down into micro and nanoplastics, constantly raising particle numbers, says toxicologist Dick Viethok of the Institute for Risk Assessment Sciences at Utrecht University in the Netherlands, who collaborated with Leslie on the study finding microplastics in human blood. Nearly 2 decades ago, marine biologists began drawing attention to the accumulation of microplastics in the ocean and their potential to interfere with organism and ecosystem health. But only in recent years have scientists started focusing on microplastics in people's food and drinking water, as well as in indoor air. Plastic particles are also intentionally added to cosmetics like lipstick, lip gloss and eye makeup to improve their feel and finish, and to personal care products, such as face scrubs, toothpastes and shower gels, for the cleansing and exfoliating properties. When washed off, these microplastics enter the sewage system. They can end up in the sewage sludge from wastewater treatment plants, which is used to fertilize agricultural lands, or even in treated water released into waterways. What if any damage microplastics may do when they get into our bodies is not clear, but a growing community of researchers investigating these questions thinks there is reason for concern. Inhaled particles might irritate and damage the lungs, akin to the damage caused by other particulate matter. And although the composition of plastic particles varies, some contain chemicals that are known to interfere with the body's hormones. Currently there are huge knowledge gaps in our understanding of how these particles are processed by the human body. How do microplastics get into our bodies? Research points to 2 main entry routes into the human body: we swallow them and we breathe them in. Evidence is growing that our food and water is contaminated with microplastics. A study in Italy, reported in 2020, found microplastics in everyday fruits and vegetables. Wheat and lettuce plants have been observed taking up microplastic particles in the lab. Uptake from soil containing the particles is probably how they get into our produce in the first place. Sewage sludge can contain microplastics not only from personal care products, but also from washing machines. One study looking at sludge from a wastewater treatment plant in southwest England found that if all the treated sludge produced there were used to fertilize soils, a volume of microplastic particles equivalent to what is found in more than 20,000 plastic credit cards could potentially be released into the environment each month. On top of that, fertilizers are coated with plastic for controlled release. Plastic mulch film is used as a protective layer for crops, and water containing microplastics is used for irrigation, says Sophie Vonk, a researcher at the Plastic Soup Foundation. Agricultural fields in Europe and North America are estimated to receive far higher quantities of microplastics than global oceans, Vonk says. Microplastics in everyday produce. Fruits and vegetables purchased at local markets in Catania, Italy, showed wide variability in the numbers of microplastic particles present. The research highlights the need for more studies on the sources of microplastic exposure. A recent pilot study commissioned by the Plastic Soup Foundation found microplastics in all blood samples collected from pigs and cows on Dutch farms, showing livestock are capable of absorbing some of the plastic particles from their feed, water or air. Of the beef and pork samples collected from farms and supermarkets as part of the same study, 75% showed the presence of microplastics. Multiple studies document that microplastic particles are also in fish muscle, not just the gut, and so are likely to be consumed when people eat seafood. Microplastics are in our drinking water, whether it's from the tap or bottled. The particles may enter the water at the source, during treatment and distribution, or, in the case of bottled water, from its packaging. Results from studies attempting to quantify levels of human ingestion vary dramatically, but they suggest people might be consuming on the order of tens of thousands of microplastic particles per person per year. These estimates may change as more data come in, and they will likely vary depending on people's diets and where they live. Plus, it is not yet clear how these particles are absorbed, distributed, metabolized and excreted by the human body, and if not excreted immediately, how long they might stick around. Babies might face particularly high exposures. A small study of 6 infants and 10 adults found that the infants had more microplastic particles in their feces than the adults did. Research suggests microplastics can enter the fetus via the placenta, and babies could also ingest the particles via breast milk. The use of plastic feeding bottles and teething toys adds to children's microplastics exposure. Thank you for listening, and we hope you found this video helpful for improving your science English. Thanks for watching. Channel for non-native English speakers.